The recipe for growing bone, maintaining and growing and reversing bone loss is...
So my thought is that if the joints are perfectly aligned, then we wouldn't have the need for the protection of calcium. So calcium's nature's Band-Aid. We wouldn't have the need for the protection of the arthritic components, osteophytes, bone spurs, to even be developed in our bodies. And those items are actually developed from the minerals that we store in our bones. So could it, in a way, be contributing to bone loss?
Contribution, but alignment alone is not enough. What you're speaking to is for out of alignment, then you have mechanical stresses, which is a stress, but that does not fix or replace or overcome the metabolic/inflammatory stresses from all the other lifestyle choices, lack of exercise, diet, what's in the diet, supplements that are missing, nutritional gaps, missing hormetic stress like exercise and fasting and hot sauna and all kinds of things we can go into.
Yeah, and then that biochemical component where cortisol, the stress hormone, comes into play, and now we start to disrupt the biochemical aspects of physiology, and then it's all just one big mess.
Optimizing hormones is another way to help suppress additional inflammatory damage. So we do like to optimize hormones, particularly for bone, because the recipe for growing bone, maintaining and growing and reversing bone loss is proper hormone maintenance, especially when we're losing those naturally. So that could mean replacing hormones. It's vitamin D3 and it is weight-bearing exercise, weight-bearing. So a bicycle is not going to do it because there's no weight-bearing on a bicycle.
Yeah, and I'd like to add it's proper weight-bearing. So I teach yoga therapy for osteoporosis, and I have ladies who think, I've been practicing for 20 years, I do yoga, and I watch them move, and they don't have that proper loading. They're typically bending their spine, which is the big no-no for osteoporosis, and not their hip joint. They're not loading in the lower body. It is weight-bearing, and it's weight-bearing properly, safely, and strongly, like strong, safe stimulation.
Well, of course, agreed. Everything we want to talk about here should be done right. So exercise, getting the most out of exercise without overdoing it. But you do need to have the stress and the loading to stimulate the mechanoreceptors in the bone and in the joints to maintain that bone mass and bone density. And what's the most important constituent of our bones is our bone marrow. And what's in our bone marrow? Our stem cells. So it all comes down to stem cells and regeneration and whether or not we can maintain that in our later years. And the better we maintain that and the longer we maintain that or accelerate it or enhance it, the better we will have health and longevity together, healthy longevity.
Yeah, so let's move to that because you specialize in regenerative medicine. And so you're kind of going to the start line of the whole thing. So can you go then into what is regenerative medicine? What exactly does that mean?
Yes, it's a strategy, really. So when you look at how a human is made, you have an embryo that becomes a fetus, that becomes a baby, that grows into an adult. And the adult has the ability to maintain and repair to a certain extent over time and exposure to certain stresses. That person can't maintain as much and their stem cells get exhausted. So stem cell is kind of the basic building block of regenerative medicine. And some people interchange the phrase stem cell medicine for regeneration because what we're learning from this normal natural growth and development process where you create a human is how to tap back into that to strategize and biohack to help improve health, to slow aging, to help reverse the cellular effects of disease and the disease effects on the cell. So that's the basis of it. It's sort of tapping back into the factory settings.
It's the top of the funnel, yet it's the deepest part of the body. So what are the approaches that you would use to start the process?
I would say you start with proper suppression of inflammatory burden in your life. So it's lifestyle changes. It's like back to the exercise, diet, nutrition, supplements, sleep hygiene, hormesis. And for those who don't know, hormesis means a slight stress on the body that builds resilience to the cells, like high-intensity interval training exercises, hot sauna, cold plunges, fasting.
And then even from an exercise perspective, like maybe going to your edge slightly over so that you get growth, right? So it's not just staying in the comfortable, it's kind of going into the discomfort, whether it's with the temperature or those other methods we're using. Yeah, yes. I actually have an infrared sauna.
Perfect. They're anti-inflammatory. And again, anything here, code is anti-inflammatory means anti-aging and pro-regenerative. So anything anti-aging is pro-regenerative and vice versa.
You talked about how we were going to promote or what the tools we're going to use. And the first thing was what we have to remove. And so that's really important because we say that stress is linked to 80 to 90% of all illnesses. And now we're understanding inflammation and the role that's playing. And ironically, inflammation is really the body trying to protect itself, right? It's when it's too much, it can't handle it anymore, whether that's the blood that goes to that area or what did somebody else I had on was explaining something. Oh, histamines, how histamines are even part of that. Is it a mediated response where it's trying to protect and open up blood vessels and allow the right environment for healing? You said remove, and I think that's how I approach my approach to osteoporosis and reversing bone loss is to go first at, well, what are the things that are contributing to loss in the first place? Because you have to stop those things.
We will lose just as a matter of aging, but so we need to fight it even harder. What you do in one decade will impact your health in the next. So you really need to be exercising with weight-bearing exercise. And I'm not saying you don't have to go to the gym for 90 minutes and do this every day. It can be strategic. You can do a 15 to 20 minute weight-bearing workout at home where you stress your bones and your muscles enough to maintain, plus hormone optimization, plus suppressing inflammation. But we do throw around the word inflammation kind of vaguely. And I want to separate acute from chronic inflammation, because acute inflammation we do need. That's if you cut yourself, that's how your body repairs it. The problem is, as we get older and our cells become not as good at doing what they did when they were more youthful, is that we develop a situation where we don't turn off that inflammation when it's done, and we get what's called chronic inflammation. And that is the disease-forming, aging-causing activities in our cells and in our body.
So when you approach this, you said to stop inflammation. It doesn't matter what the disease is or what the condition is that you're going after. Do you start at a certain place?
Well, everyone's different. We sort of make it precise for the individual, but we like to measure inflammatory markers for chronic inflammation. It may not be necessarily what one person has versus another person has. Those could be different problems, like autoimmune over here, or responding to effects of a COVID infection over here that are lingering, or something else. They all have common pathways into the cells that continue this chronic inflammatory set of activities. That's the root cause. So if we can address that, whatever the ramifications or disease or problem that's occurring could be suppressed or reversed. That's what we head towards.
Yeah, I just had 24 vials of blood done to look at my blood extensively. And my biological age is 6.6 years younger. I'm like, yes. So now I'm like, I have 6 months to even try to get younger.
It can be done. And regenerative medicine might be an additional hack if you've done all the other things. So, if your hormones are optimized and your diet, exercise, and mental stress are managed, you have great restorative sleep, you're doing all the right things, that's when we can add, if you're interested in something in the regenerative family of approaches. I don't love to offer regenerative medicine to people who aren't optimized elsewhere, because they won't get as much out of it. But someone like you who's already at the peak of health might be the kind of candidate we like to treat.
If you enjoyed this clip from Stronger Bones Lifestyle, be sure to check out the next video or dive into the full podcast episode. Before you go, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.